Carolina loves big men that can run, and there's a class of 2025 center who's given that love back by just including the Tar Heels in his top 8.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, June 25th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast. It's the only daily North Carolina show out there, and it's the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch. Special shout out to all you everydayers out there and all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord family. We're so glad that you're all here. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sportsing like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, coming up on the show today, we are going to talk about this center that I just mentioned. His name is Malachi Moreno. We're going to answer a mailbag question that I've been sitting on for a little while, but it has to do specifically with the NBA draft, so that's why I wanted to bring it out today. And then at the end of the show, we're going to look at where Carolina's incoming freshman class landed in some final recruiting rankings, but more importantly, talk about that may not be the best way to look at incoming classes anymore. So we'll get to all of that. But first, it's Tuesday, and that means it's time for Trivia Tuesday. All right, speaking of the incoming freshman class, Carolina has an electric score coming in Ian Jackson, and that had me thinking, hey, let's talk top scoring freshman at Carolina of all time. So here's your Tuesday trivia question. Give me the top 11 freshman scores in Carolina history. So we're talking total points in a player's freshman season. Why did I go 11 instead of 10? You'll find that out when I give you the answer at the end of the show. Also, just want to say, man, was a bummer on Monday night. My son's Little League team lost their semifinal tournament game at the end of the season, and I had a great run. It was a lot of fun. I'm the head coach. It's wild, and we get after it. But, man, I'm always so thankful to these parents who let me invest in their young man. It's so cool, and so just a neat opportunity. I'd love to hear from some of you that maybe you have your kids in youth sports and things like that as well. All right, let's talk Malachi Moreno, who is not just a big, but he is a true, legit 7-foot center, and somebody that Carolina offered pretty recently that loves the Tar Heels. He has said as much, said he really likes Sean May, loved talking with Hubert Davis, and this is all great news. And so Moreno, now the reason we're talking about him specifically today is because on Monday, he announced his top 8 schools. Let me give them to you as Joe Tipton helped announce these, as he often does. I'll give them to you alphabetically. Arkansas, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisville, North Carolina, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. So really, getting this top 8 was just an excuse for me to talk about him more, because with Moreno, we've talked about him a little bit in passing with all of these 2025 offers, but I've never taken the opportunity yet to sit down and talk with him at a bit more length. And so thought this would be a great opportunity to do that. So that top 8 is really just a convenient excuse for me, right? So here we go. Moreno, a center. I've seen him listed at 6'11". Others say he's like, this dude's a legit 7-footer. Whatever. He's super tall. At some point, we're just degrees of taller, right? 230 pounds, class of 2025. And yes, I know you're all immediately thinking it because it's where my brain has gone as well. Is there any reclassification buzz with this guy? Because lots of us would like to see more depth in the front court. To anything I've heard yet, no, there is no reclassification buzz. So just there you go. He's from Georgetown, Kentucky, Great Crossing High School. If you're wondering where Georgetown is, just a little bit north of Lexington, Kentucky. So there's that. Rankings wise, the overall consensus, he's number 32. He's currently 16th at On3, 26th at 247, and 24th at Rivals. He's been a pretty big riser. And to that point, he's still 68th at ESPN, who I believe hasn't actually re-updated their rankings yet. So you see kind of where he's come from based on just where ESPN has him versus where the other three main recruiting services we always look at have him: 16th, 26th, and 24th. So think more in that range than where ESPN's is. Because part of this and why this is something I love that Carolina is pursuing this young man is there are other centers that are up there and some that are even flying up as well. But he currently is the consensus number one center in the class of 2025. And so I love Hubert Davis getting in on him and talking about him. And I love that he's in on the Tar Heels. He sees it, right? But the fact that he's the number one center and he is consensus 32nd right now really shows you how much people value what it is that centers do. So just keep all that in mind. In terms of visits, because he has already taken some, he's only taken one official. That was to Iowa, which is one of those final 8 schools. And then in terms of unofficials, he's been to Kentucky, which makes sense. It's just a little bit down the road. Indiana, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Arkansas. However, the Arkansas visit was under not the Calipari coaching staff, but under the Muss-Bus coaching staff. So he was in on Arkansas before the Kentucky head coach went to Arkansas. So just hear all that. Interesting that he's not had an unofficial to Louisville yet. He's just right there. Like from basically Lexington to Louisville is like an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour across. What was this? I-64? I love talking freeways. Anybody else like talking freeways? Like, how cool is our freeway system that everything east to west is even numbers and everything north and south is odd numbers? I love that. I think it's super cool. Anyway, currently no other visits scheduled per On3's reporting about it. So that's all that we've got right now. From how he's talked, from how Moreno's talked about North Carolina, I expect that the Tar Heels will get a visit at some point. And remember, you can take as many officials now as you want. And so there's no reason that probably won't happen. Let me just give you a couple takes on Moreno. In terms of his recruiting in this top 8 finalists, on paper, being from the Lexington area, it seems like it's going to be really hard to keep him away from Kentucky or from Louisville. And it makes sense why he's got Arkansas on his list. Although, as a reminder, he had Arkansas on his list already under the old regime, even before Coach Cal was there. So this probably just enhances that, having Coach Cal there now. So there's that whole thing. And let's be honest, as we think about schools like Indiana and Columbus with Ohio State, right? Like Bloomington, Indiana is just shy of 3 hours away from where he lives in Georgetown, Kentucky, and then Columbus, where Ohio State is, the same thing, just under 3 hours away there. So all of those, that's 5 of those 8 make a ton of sense. And then you look at Iowa and North Carolina, as well as, what was the other one that would be a little, and Notre Dame, which is just northern Indiana. So Carolina's going to have to do some work if they want to get him out of like that, just that general vicinity. And here's the thing, though. Despite growing up where he's grown up, from a previous interview I'd read, and I apologize, I don't remember who this is to be able to credit them, but mentions that Moreno, even though he grew up so close to Lexington, didn't really have like a dream school. There was no school that's like, man, I want to be a Wildcat. I want to go play for whoever was the coach there then. And so I think Carolina could get this done. So we'll watch that. In terms of what is Malachi Moreno looking for? And this is part of another reason I'm kind of encouraged by this. This was actually from a previous interview that he did with On3, where literally the first thing out of his mouth in this, like, what are you looking for in a school? I'm going to be looking for a place where I can, get this, grow my faith. If that doesn't scream Hubert Davis, I don't know what it, and I know there's other coaches that are men of faith, and I get that, but it's just so present, so prevalent in who Hubert Davis is at his core and in his DNA. So I think that's a thing. He went on to say another couple things, but also said, I want to be in a family type environment. And look, I know that so many of these schools preach family type environment, but what Hubert Davis does and the way he's going about doing it, sure, there are others that may be similar, but it is, just hear me. It is different, that level of personal intentionality. So that's there. Also, I'm kind of taken with Malachi Moreno's mentality of like not being, I just want to go where I can stand out. I want to go where I can start and do this. He wants to win. He says, quote, at the end of the day, I just want to win, making sure my team has more points on the board than the other team. Whatever I need to do to make that happen, that's what I want to do, end quote. Man, I tell you what, from hearing all these things we hear from young men and young women that are coming in to play college basketball as well, this to me is not normal. Some will maybe try to say it, but it doesn't sound, it's not worded that legitimately. Like when you get it worded like this, like the way Moreno said it, man, you can take that to the bank. All right. I want to read to you to wrap up our conversation about Moreno for today. And obviously we can get deeper on him if it becomes more serious, when a visit happens, those kind of things. But Jamie Shaw's scouting report on him had 3 or 4 things I just wanted to point out and specifically highlight. So let me read this to you and I'll stop along the way. Okay. He says, quote, the first thing that pops with Malachi Moreno is his size. He is a legit 7-footer with good length and a projectable frame. The athletic fluidity is intriguing with Moreno. And here's where I first want to stop. He runs the floor well. Man, I tell you, you think about some of the best Carolina, Tyler Zeller always pops into my brain. That dude just got out and ran, right? And so anytime I can read, somebody that's not just a lumbering big, somebody that's going to beat you down the court, man, I love that. So I'm glad to hear that. He runs the floor well and he is able to open his hips and change direction. Moreno is a good area rebounder, will get in the paint and mix it up and attack the boards with 2 hands. All right, I want to stop and also pull out some criticism along the way. And the more you read these scouting reports, you start to just catch some of the things. Like, for example, he says Moreno is a good area rebounder. What is that not saying? That's not saying anything about his ability to go get a ball outside of his area. That's something that he's going to have to work on. Clearly is what Jamie Shaw is saying here. He's given a positive. He's a good area rebounder. But what screams equally as loudly to me is what he's not saying. That he doesn't say anything about him being a good rebounder out of area. So Moreno's going to need to work on that. We'll get in the paint, mix it up, and attack the boards with 2 hands. He finishes around the basket with both hands. This is a positive to me. I'm always looking for, I harped on Elliot Cadeau quite a bit this past season for not using his left hand as often as I would have liked to have seen. And so with Moreno, I love finishing around the basket with both hands and above the rim. All right, let's carry on. He has a go-to move over his left shoulder and is comfortable getting to that on the block. Already my warning bells are starting to go off when I read that. Because then we now go to the next sentence. I'd like to see him continue to develop the counters. So when Jamie Shaw says he has a go-to move, that means first off, he needs more moves, right? So that you can't just sit on that move all the time. And then, as Shaw then says, this time there's no reading the tea leaves or reading between the lines. He just says he needs to develop counters. And that's the thing. That's what I'd really like to see him grow in his senior years. Not just that go-to move. That's going to work in high school. It's going to get rejected once you get to North Carolina or wherever it is you're going. Let's carry on. Defensively, he is a solid rim protector and he walls up well, staying under control in the paint. He has touch and can stretch the floor. Will need to make a couple of tweaks with his release that flatten things out. Will help become a better free throw shooter as well. So there's another just kind of growth, constructive criticism that needs to happen with the shot. Moreno's going to need to work on that. He has nice upside as a big man, and he's continued to improve each time he stepped on the floor over the past 8 to 12 months. A lot that translates, end quote. I love that. The last thing I want to point out a positive is that continued growth. That's all you can ask for in a young man, right? 15, 16, 17 years old. It's just that they're constantly growing and not stalling out. That's what concerns me, is when kids aren't working hard enough. So I'm encouraged. I'd like to see North Carolina continue these conversations with him, and you just can't teach height, especially athletic height. So that's the thing. All right, next. Got a mailbag question about the NBA draft way earlier in the spring, and I've been actually holding on to it because I wanted to get to it this week, and now's the time. Where the anticipated undrafted players will go, their plans, what they'll do. That's what we want to get to, and we'll answer that question coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, look, I love sports. I love them so much, and I just never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports just aren't sportsing like they usually do during the main chunk of the season. But FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you got to do is open up the app, dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up every one of their customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. How about some current World Series odds? Dodgers, unfortunately, lead the way at plus 280. Yankees plus 450. Phillies plus 550. Braves plus 900. And Orioles plus 950. That's your top five right now. So head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, we got a mailbag question, and this comes from our Discord. By the way, going to do several mailbag shows throughout the summer. So if you'd like to get in a mailbag question, you can come into the Discord. If you're not part of that already, we'd love to see you there. There's a mailbag channel. You can just drop questions in there. You can send them to me on Twitter or Instagram, email the show, lockedontarheels@gmail.com, whatever. I'll get them. We'll roll them in. So today's question comes from Scott Shade on Discord. And if that name sounds familiar, there's a good reason why. It's my dad. What up, Pops? Thanks for the question. Scott Shade says, assuming they want to continue playing basketball, what is the path forward for the guys graduating? This is assuming they're not high on any draft boards. Armando, for example, does not fit perfectly the current mold of an NBA player. Does he go overseas, G League, join the coaching, recruiting staff, etc.? This is a great question now, and one that probably a lot of people have. And yes, there's a couple things in it. Assuming they do want to go keep playing basketball. Some will, some won't. And then what is the path forward if they don't get drafted? So let me give you all, Dad and everyone else, kind of the four players in consideration here, because there were four scholarship players that are moving on. That would be Harrison Ingram, Armando Bacot, Cormac Ryan, and Paxson Wojcik. As of now, I'm recording this, what is just after midnight into Tuesday. And so the draft, we're less than 2 days away now at this point. At this point, we expect Harrison Ingram to get drafted. Exactly where that's going to be, whether he is able to slide in late first round or what seems like more likely earlier second round. He's going to get drafted, though. That's a thing. We don't, though, expect any of the other Tar Heels to get drafted. And so that would include Armando Bacot, as the question suggested, and also Cormac Ryan and Paxson Wojcik. And so the question then becomes, where is Harrison drafted? Because that could be dependent on where he's at and what he does. But then these other three guys, where do they go on and do? So in answer to this question, the answer lies, as it does with many things in life, in preference, in terms of like, what do these guys value? What are their career aspirations? For example, we've all seen how business savvy Armando is, right? He might want to keep playing basketball. He might just want to get into advertising or marketing or something. Who knows what he wants to do. I expect him to keep playing basketball, but we'll see. For guys that want to go the pro route, that do want to keep making a go of it, there are several options. And many are going to want to continue playing as long as they can. Like, that's the dream. That's what these guys have been doing. Like, I want to play professionally. And playing professionally doesn't just mean NBA, right? That means G League, that means overseas, lots of professional options. And so we will see some guys go make a living in the G League. We will see some undrafted free agents with a couple different things. Some of them will sign with summer teams that'll get to play in the summer leagues. Some, as undrafted free agents, will actually sign a two-way. We'll see that sometimes. And some will end up getting like a 10-day, little short contract to just prove it. All sorts of options. We'll see. But that's where some of them will land up. Others will go overseas and make a very good life for themselves. Like, there's good money in that. There's good stability in that, where players will go play overseas. Some of them end up living abroad. Some of them come back, right? Like Brady Manick is back in the States right now, for example. But you got guys like Andrew Playtech making a career for himself playing basketball overseas. Like, it's cool. You love to see it. So lots of Tar Heels have gone that route. See the world. Why not? You have heard from multiple of these Tar Heels that have gone abroad and had a very fun life. They'll take their families with them if they have a family and just make it a thing. And so we're going to see some of that. Some, yes, will go into coaching, and there's a variety of reasons and times when that will happen. Some will go into coaching almost right out of the gate by choice because of desire, right? Like, hey, I just want to stick around and be a GA, a graduate assistant coaching staff, or whatever part of the coaching staff. And some translate into other roles because of that. And it might even look like starting as like a DOBO, director of basketball operations, lower on the totem pole, working your way up, different things like that. And keep in mind, though, now there are more, it's not just 3 assistants. You got 5 now. And that's why Pat Sullivan and Marcus Page were able to be legitimate parts of the staff this year. So keep that in mind as well. Others will go into coaching just kind of as their body breaks down. Like, basketball is a tough sport. I know it's not football, and there's typically not all the head injuries and all that kind of stuff that you deal with, but basketball is a tough on your body sport. And some guys' bodies just give out, and it's like, you know what? I want the rest of my life to be able to move when I get up in the morning. I'm just going to call it good and go ahead and get into coaching because that's something I want to do. And so you see guys doing that early on in their career, like Marcus Page. He's like, you know what? I'm good. I've played enough basketball. I want to get into coaching now. And you see him doing it. Others will maybe want to keep playing, but the level they're able to play at in terms of professional ranks isn't just as high as maybe they thought it would, they could get to. And it's just like, yeah, all right, let's coach. You got that. And you got guys like, keep in mind, like Paxson Wojcik's dad is an assistant coach at the D1 level, was with the Tar Heels in the Doherty era. Now remember Michigan State, like he was playing against his dad. So you've got stuff like that. And so that's the coaching. Some of them, some of these guys have been playing basketball their whole lives and they're just done and burnt out. You get that every now and again where a guy's just like, I'm good. I'm just going to start my career doing something else. And you'll have that sometimes. Some will parlay their Carolina ties into other roles in basketball or in the sports world, like getting into being an agent, things like that. Or parlaying it into other business opportunity, whatever it may be. And so lots of possibilities. I would think these guys, have chances. Armando Bacot should be able to find a role and land somewhere. I think Cormac Ryan's feistiness, his shot, his willingness to defend is going to find him a role somewhere. Paxson Wojcik, why not? Like, he's a shooter. That's what he came in known as. Yes, he is not as high level or as highly capable as Harrison, Armando, or Cormac, but I think he could find a spot to shoot the ball somewhere if he wanted to. And so we'll keep our eyes on that. My expectation, typically what we'll see is once the draft is over at the end of this week, we'll start learning more about these guys' plans. I would bet they're, going to try to play in summer league and see if they can just latch on with the team and make a name for themselves. So we'll see what's going on with that. So as a reminder, draft is Wednesday night and Thursday night. It's a 2-night affair now. Got to make everything bigger, I guess, all the time. So now, incoming 2024 class, we got those guys outgoing. We got other guys coming in. Even though it doesn't have Elliot Cadeau still as part of it, it's not as lofty as it once was, but don't misunderstand. This is still a really, really good recruiting high school class, but don't miss the new way of evaluating recruiting classes. There's some more opportunities to evaluate an entire recruiting class in this day and age. That's a better way to do it. We'll talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you about eBay Motors, passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And with eBay Motors, you have everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, from exhaust kits to LED headlights and more. Whether you're into speed or power or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Why? Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. All right, Carolina's 2024 recruiting class consists of Ian Jackson, Drake Powell, and James Brown. Reminder, it initially also had Elliot Cadeau, so it would have been through the roof. The ceiling is the roof, by the way, big, but then Elliot reclassed, and this group now just had those three guys in it. Still a very good high school recruiting class. You look at the class rankings. Carolina, even without Elliot, is 9th at 247 Sports, 6th at On3, 7th at Rivals. Some of the kind of team like at 247, the teams they're behind are Duke, Alabama, Rutgers, and I know that sounds weird, but they got 2 studs coming in. Go check them out. Arizona State, Mizzou, who's just got a whole host of them. What's interesting about Mizzou in this to me is I think that both Ian Jackson and Drake Powell are individually better than any of Mizzou's guys, but they've got a bigger crop. And so it all depends on how you grade it. For example, in fantasy football, which is the only place I'm making trades, if I'm in a trade, I don't care about having numbers. I just want the best guy in the trade. Like I one time traded Gronk for got Gronk and gave up 3 dudes, none of whom I really cared about, but the amount was there. And I was like, I don't care. I just want Gronk, right? Same kind of thing. I would rather have the elite talent in an Ian and a Drake, and Mizzou, you have your guys. Great. So Mizzou, Arkansas, Baylor, and Miami. Those are the teams that are ahead of Carolina at 247. But here's what you need to know. In this day and age, we can't look at it that way anymore. It's fine and good to separate out the high school class, and we will and we should. But now it's not just about the freshmen you have coming in. You all know it as well as I do. What is it that matters now? The freshmen, but almost more importantly, who are the transfers that are coming in? And so now we're not just talking about high school recruiting classes, not just talking about transfer recruiting classes. We're talking about overall recruiting classes. I love it. 247, for example, does a ranking now of not only your high school class, but another ranking that is your overall class coming in. And they grade it in terms of both freshmen and transfers. Boom. What does that look like? So in that 247 ranking, Carolina is 5th in overall class ranking. Does that make sense? So meaning including the 3 freshmen and the 2 incoming transfers, Cade, Tyson, and Van Allen Lubin. So those 5 guys together, 247 ranks as the 5th best incoming overall class behind only Duke, Alabama, Arkansas, and Baylor. And it's kind of painful as you hear some of those names, Duke because it's Duke, and then Alabama and Arkansas just because of some of the guys that we didn't get that we wanted that they ended up getting. Whatever. Fine. Cool. Great. But each of them have bigger classes than Carolina. Duke's is 10 people, Bama's is 8, Arkansas is 8, and Baylor's 6. And so in some ways, it's like, great, you bring all that talent in. I kind of like Carolina, what they do better, right? Because this year, anyway, and kind of, like last year, it was 4 returners and all those new guys coming in. This year, Carolina has 6 returners and these 5 transfers coming in, which is a great class, but you add them to a bunch of guys who are already Carolina guys. You know what I'm saying? And so this is a critical switch that we've all got to make. Not just talking as in depth about high school recruiting anymore. Yes, it's important, but right now it kind of isn't as important as your entire class and who those transfers are, because they bring experience and at times more talent, right? And so you got to keep that in mind now too. All right. So really interesting conversation there now. And something that I say, I'm preaching to the choir as I say that to you all, because I'm starting to wrap my brain around that more too. How do we more capably evaluate what teams have coming in? All right. I want to say a big word of congratulations to Ethan Strand, who competed in the 1500 meter men's Team USA time trials for track and field on Monday night. Was in the final 12 competitors. Unfortunately, didn't make it, but I mean, it is a loaded, only 3 advanced, and it was a loaded top 3. But the fact that this young man is racing in this race is massive. So Ethan Strand, congrats, buddy. All right, we got to get out of here, but we got to get our Tuesday trivia answer. Reminder, top 11 freshman scorers of all time. We're talking about it in terms of total points, not in terms of points per game. I'm going to go from 11 to 1. Remember, I told you I'd tell you why we're doing top 11 instead of top 10, because number 11 is His Airness, Michael Jordan, 460 points. Number 10, Anton Jamison, 484. Now we get to the 500s. The top 9 all scored 500 or more. Number 9, Phil Ford, 508 points. Number 8, J.R. Reed, 528. Number 7, Brandon Wright, 545. Number 6, Sam Perkins, 550. By the way, if you're not playing along at home, you need to pause right now and write out who you think the top 5 are. All right, here we go. Do it. I'm not stopping. I'm going now. Number 5, Kobe White, 562. Number 4, Harrison Barnes, 580. Number 3, Tyler Hansborough, 587. Number 2, Rashad McCants. Apologies, but we're saying his name today, 594. And then number 1, the only freshman in Carolina history to score 600 or more points as a freshman is none other than, anybody got it? Joseph Forte. Love to see it. Congrats, Joe. That's awesome. So really curious to see can Ian Jackson or Drake Powell find their way onto this list this season. If you're not part of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord family, we'd love to have you come be part of it. The link is in the show notes. It's free to join. Come for the Tar Heels, stay for the community. If you're not subscribed to the show on audio and video, very easy to do that. If you're watching on YouTube, just hit that subscribe button. If you're listening, very easy to hit subscribe on the audio platform as well. If you want to send us an email, again, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow with Coach Pat Kilby. But until then, peace.